Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to move the motion that in view of the long-term negative impacts of the mandatory 55-year retirement policy on future debt levels, labor force participation, social security, and valuable skills, that this House directs the relevant standing committee to review the current 55-year retirement policy with a view to amending the policy to 1, move the compulsory retirement age back to the original default age of 60 years, and 2, insert a provision for retirement to be optional to employees.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
Beg to.
Thank you. May I thank the Honorable Ratasalan Mavo. And I'll call on the Honorable Rotemo Mukepa to speak on her motion.
Honorable Speaker, maintaining human dignity and social justice is a basic human right, particularly for those that have spent all their productive life in nation building. Policies and programs, Madam Speaker, of government especially, must ensure we maximize on their potential. Policymakers, Honorable Speaker, usually consider the demography, fiscal cost of aging, health, life expectancy, nature of the profession, supply of labor force, etc., while deciding the retirement age. However, Madam Speaker, in 2009, after the coup of December 5, 2006, there was a decree that was named the State Service Decree of 2009. And for Clause 15, the heading for that, Madam Speaker, was retirement age in the public service. Clause 15(1), notwithstanding anything contained in any written law, the retirement age in the public service shall be 55 years. 2, the retirement age of 55 years in subsection 1 above shall extend to the civil service, Fiji Police Force, and the Fiji Prison Service. 3, any person employed in the civil service, Fiji Police Force, and the Fiji Prison Service who is already over the age of 55 years shall retire on 30th April 2009. 4, nothing in this section prevents, upon retirement, the continued employment of a person on a fixed-term contractual employment if his or her services are required in the government. So you can imagine, Madam Speaker, those who had spent a beautiful Christmas and New Year in 2008, and to be told in this, by way of this decree, that they had to retire on the 30th of April 2009. Some of them, Madam Speaker, were at 54, almost 55. You can imagine how these people, these civil servants, people who were employed in the Fiji Police Force and the Fiji Prison Service, Madam Speaker. We note here that the Fiji Military Forces was not part of this retirement decree. So, Madam Speaker, you can imagine the families of these workers to be told that they were not retiring at 60 years, which they had been planning for, but at 55. Children's education, mortgages to be paid, housing, probably a vehicle loan, relatives' education, children to be educated. It wasn't so bad, Madam Speaker, for these people who worked outside of Suva. because the cost of living is generally cheaper in other areas of the country, apart from Suva. So you can imagine the shock and the trauma that must have gone through these thousands of people, the sleeplessness, the heartbreak that they would have been going through in terms of being told that they were retiring at this time. And we put this into perspective, Madam Speaker, that the normal retirement age in other countries, I will just name a few, Madam Speaker. It is 65 years for countries like Austria, Belgium, Denmark. In Germany, it is 67 years, also in Greece and Italy. And the UK, it is 68 years. If they opted for early retirement, in Austria, it would be 60 years. In Belgium, it would also be 60 years. And in Germany, it would be 65 years. Greece, 65. Greece, 58, Madam Speaker. Italy, 57 years. And in the UK, where they've just had elections, if they opted to take early retirement, it would be 65 years. And I just note here, Madam Speaker, that in the Roman Catholic Church, because it is noted here, that for priests it is 70 years retirement, 75 years for bishops and archbishops. And I note here also that Archbishop Peter Loichong would be retiring at 75 years, as did his predecessor, Archbishop Petero Matada, the late Archbishop Petero Matada. So for those mandated by this decree, Madam Speaker, that they were to retire at 55 years, many of them did not own their own homes. Many of them were renting, so they would have had to move out of those homes, possibly into squatter settlements, as we heard many of them had to move out into. The lucky ones, Madam Speaker, were thrown a lifeline in that other Pacific countries have employed the highly skilled labor that were coming out of, that were on the market now in Fiji, highly skilled with their expertise, their experience and their qualifications. And Madam Speaker, we know that almost in every Pacific country, in Pacific Island country, they have Fijians who are working there and providing very well for the civil service and for the private and public sector. I note just one here, Madam Speaker, in Nauru alone. The Chief Justice, the Chief Registrar, the DPP, and the top lawyers in that country, the posts are held by Fijians. And those who were, the women who were here from the Pacific Island Parliamentarian Forum last week, they also commended very highly the people who are working in their countries who have come from Fiji. So these are the people who have been out of service to Fiji because they did not want them any longer and grabbed by these countries, especially in the Pacific Islands, but also in Australia and New Zealand. We have to also note, Madam Speaker, that in terms of life expectancy, there are very high stress levels that are now in various areas in the workplace, in the civil service. We find that the younger people, Madam Speaker, the young professionals, I don't have to name them, they are dying, Madam Speaker, and many of them because they are of the high stress levels that they have to work under. The older ones, Madam Speaker, the ones who have retired, are now living longer. So that is something for us to think about and to remember. Madam Speaker, I found that in trying to get some information for this particular motion, it was very difficult to get any information from the government ministries. And also through you, Madam Speaker, to the Honorable Prime Minister and Attorney General, we had written a letter requesting if our side of the House could visit some of the government ministries we were told that in order to visit them, we have to go through the line minister. So I don't know why we are victimized in this particular regard, Madam Speaker. So I'm bringing to the attention of the Honorable Prime Minister and Attorney General that only 2 days ago we wanted to meet with some civil servants, and they told us you have to go through the line minister. So if that is for us, Madam Speaker, who are ordinary members of the public, desiring service from the civil service, I don't know how we can operate productively with that type of restriction, Madam Speaker. So in terms of this particular motion, Madam Speaker, as I said, the lucky ones are the ones who have been able to find employment overseas, especially the teachers, the nurses, who are spoken very highly of in overseas countries. These people who have retired, Madam Speaker, with a rising cost of living in Fiji, those who have not been able to get postings overseas or employment overseas, life is very difficult for them, Madam Speaker, because of the rising cost of living. We hear that from our constituency visits, and we also hear it from people who come to the office. There was a shocking revelation, Madam Speaker, in 2013 during the members' forum, which was held by FNPF in terms of their reforms, that there were some members there who were receiving a mere $5 monthly pension annuity payout from FNPF. This is just one example, Madam Speaker. And some of these people who are on pensions that they thought were able to support them for the rest of their life, some of them, Madam Speaker, they found it just too expensive and too difficult to live in Suva because of the great reduction in their pensions, especially from FNPF. They have had to relocate to other parts of the country, especially to the Western Division, Madam Speaker. And this is one area that is of great concern for those who have retired and those who are almost on the point of retiring. So with those words, Madam Speaker, I commend this motion to the House and wish to have the debate on this motion. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The motion is before the House for debate. And I give the floor to the Honorable Minister for Education. Point of order.
So much of Standing Orders 23.1 be suspended to allow debate and vote on all motions that are on today's order paper.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
Madam Speaker, I second the motion.
Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone oppose the motion? No? Thank you. The motion is agreed to. We will continue with our debates on this motion and the last one before we adjourn for today. Sorry, I didn't hear that someone did oppose the motion, which means that we will have to put the motion to the vote. And the question is to suspend the sitting to enable the House to complete the motions before we adjourn at 12:30. The motion is now put to the vote. Huh? Sorry, open the vote.
It should be put to a vote. It is, any member can move this. It is just to complete the business on the order paper today, and I believe it's only one more motion that's on the agenda.
The standing order says that we adjourned the sitting at 12:30, and you have put forward a motion to suspend the standing order, but a member has opposed that motion, and therefore we will have to put it to the vote. Open the vote.
Then speak up.
Close the vote. Open again the vote. To suspend or not to suspend the standing order. Are we ready to close the vote? Close the vote. Secretary General.
Result of the vote as follows: 16 ayes, 24 noes, and 10 have not voted.
There being 16 ayes and 24 noes, the motion has been defeated, and therefore we will continue with the sitting until 12:30 sharp. Thank you. The floor is now open for debate, and I call on the Minister for Education to have the floor.
Madam Speaker, I rise to oppose the motion. Madam Speaker, to those whom this retirement age is applied to, they're working in the formal sector. The formal sector are the ones who are members of the superannuation fund. Post 55 years, they will get a stream of super. They will get a stream of income as pension. Now, beyond 55, if they choose to work, then there will be double dipping. They also access the superannuation fund, as well as they will be part of the public service. That's number one, is that the members on the other side are arguing that they're not arguing that we should raise the superannuation age, eligibility age from 55 to 60. Very conveniently, they're saying, we'll keep it at 55, but we want to raise the retirement age to 60. They've forgotten the main argument about what do the members want. Do they want to lose the superannuation from 55 and choose to 60 and continue to work till 60? They haven't addressed that particular issue. They should go back to the members. Madam Speaker, number 2 point that I want to argue is that we're talking about retirement from the public sector, not from the private sector. You can establish your own business. You can go and work in the private sector. You can market your skills that you have, if the skills are that good, to the private sector. So, Madam Speaker, so private sector doesn't have a retirement age because it belongs to individual. But the public sector belongs to everyone, and everyone must have opportunity to get employment there. Public sector belongs to everyone. Madam Speaker, and there are people in the market who want to enter the public sector. Unless and until people don't move on and move out of the public sector, we won't be able to give opportunity for new young minds to come into and join the public sector. Madam Speaker, and I want to address a few other issues raised by the mover of the motion, the Honourable Leader of Opposition. Talked about children's education. Who will look after children's education after retirement? Madam Speaker, the government will look after the children's education. The Banimarama government will look after the free education policy. Early childhood education is free now. Primary education is free now. Secondary education is free now. University education is free now. The government will look after them. Madam Speaker, the Honourable Member also said about mortgages to be paid. Madam Speaker, I'm wondering if someone at the age of 55 and beyond is still paying mortgage, it is not about the retirement age, but it is about poor financial planning. Poor financial planning. Madam Speaker, the honourable member also selectively picked up the retirement age in other countries. Turkey has 45 years of retirement age. Turkey has 45 years at retirement age. Greece, 57, it has 55 before. Bolivia, 58. Italy, 59. 55, it was in 1990s. Madam Speaker, as the country grows, as the country develops, as the country resolves its social and economic problems, the country can re-look at looking at some of these changes to some of these variables. So there's no, I mean, it's important that when we drop numbers, we are not selective. Madam Speaker, the third issue I want to talk about is in the motion, Madam Speaker, the honourable member talked about retirement age versus future debt levels. I can't see any link between that. What is the link between, getting someone off to retire at 55 and building future debt levels? To the contrary, Yeah. Madam Speaker, the honourable member, I want to see what is the link between retirement age and future debt levels. Debt levels of what? The country's debt levels of individuals. I want to see what is the issue about labour force participation rate we're talking about. In fact, we're talking about better distribution of labour force participation in the public sector and moving these people to market their skills in the private sector, establish their own business, being their own masters. So, Madam Speaker, we're talking about better utilization of the social security. We're talking about better getting new bright minds in the public sector and giving opportunity to everyone to have a fair share of the public sector. That's about the logic behind establishing a retirement age of 55. And this side of the House, I join our members here in opposing this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable Dr. Biman Prasad.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to contribute very briefly on the motion. Madam Speaker, I think there is absolute confusion in what we've just heard from the honourable member from the other side, honourable minister from the other side. The honourable leader of the opposition is talking about retirement age in the public service, which was reduced from 60 to 55, and the honourable minister forgot to say that the retirement age was 60 and it was reduced to 55. So the logic behind this motion is to raise it back to 60. And there are several reasons given as to why the retirement age ought to be reduced from 60 to 55. And some of them, Madam Speaker, were related to employment, that because you reduce the retirement age in the public service, you're going to give more employment to young people. The logic, Madam Speaker, is actually quite wrong, because if you take that logic towards its logical conclusion, then tomorrow you might say, okay, we have more people coming out of the university, more people coming out of technical colleges, they need civil service job. Are you going to suggest that you're going to reduce the retirement age from 55 to 50? Now, so that idea of that logic that we've heard about creating jobs, and we've heard it from the Honourable Minister for Education when he was employing teachers at $12,000. Madam Speaker, throughout the world, the trend is that you look at the labour market, you look at the civil service, Madam Speaker, in most countries, should be a sector where young, bright people want to go and work. And they want to see, so they want to see a long-term future. Now, you tell me, a young, bright graduate from a university wants to look at a job in the civil service, knows that he or she has to retire at 55. Why would that bright person in his or her right mind want to join the civil service? So the logic of improving the public service with good people, efficient public service, will not come simply because you are going to reduce the age from 60 to 55. In fact, at 55, Madam Speaker, the wisdom, the experience, the knowledge that is needed in the civil service. And Madam Speaker, I know there is a contradiction to what the government is doing. If you look at the appointments under the Administration of Justice Decree 2009, some of the important constitutional appointments, the retirement age is 65. And it proves the point, Madam Speaker, it proves the point that you need wisdom, you need experience of those kind of people in the public service. I mean, I was taught by teachers, Madam Speaker, in primary school and secondary school with an average experience of 10 to 15 years. Today we have teachers in schools, in primary schools and secondary schools with an average experience of 4 to 5 years. Now, at 55, Madam Speaker, a teacher would be the best. I would like my kids to be taught by a very experienced teacher. So this logic of reducing retirement age from 60 to 55 was wrong, and government should look at this seriously. This is a very sensible motion, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I now give the floor to the Honourable Attorney General. Sorry, I have to give it to the most senior member. The Honourable Attorney General.
Madam Speaker, I feel somewhat compelled to respond to this motion, given that the Public Service Commission, the public service is in question here. Madam Speaker, I'd just like to very quickly highlight the lack of logic, as highlighted by Honourable Minister Reddy, in the question itself about future debt levels. I think it's very timely that the Leader of Opposition brought this to our attention, because Standard & Poor's has just recently given a rating to Fiji. Well, it should be specific. So, Madam Speaker, I just want to highlight this. Fiji's sovereign credit rating has now gone up to B+, stable B. This is, Madam Speaker, a huge improvement. Fiji's debt to GDP ratio has dropped to 47.8%. So obviously the retirement age is working well in terms of as far as debt levels are concerned. So, Madam Speaker, I also want to highlight, Madam Speaker, the issue about superannuation. It has been highlighted, I think, very quickly. The superannuation, again highlighted by Minister Reddy, is that superannuation is payable at the age of 55. Madam Speaker, the reality is this. The superannuation fund has been reformed. There are reports going back in the 1990s that said that if the Fiji National Provident Fund was not reformed, all the monies would have finished by 2052. So Dr. Bhiman's Honorable Prasad's son, who's a young, bright lawyer, would not have had a pension by the time he retired. That's what would have happened, Madam Speaker, if it was not reformed. The reformation of Fiji National Provident Fund has meant that now the pensioners of Fiji are more secure than ever before. In fact, Madam Speaker, the Fiji National Provident Fund has recently won an international award for the manner in which the superannuation fund is now being run. The asset value of FNPF has increased. So as far as the premise of this question is concerned regarding security of pensioners is very much intact. Madam Speaker, just very, very quickly, the reality is, Madam Speaker, and I think we're all about to finish at 12:30, the reality is, Madam Speaker, as highlighted by the Honourable Leader of Opposition, the retirement age also, in fact, is now applicable to those in the RFMF too. So it's the police force, the prisons department, and also the RFMF. The other point, Madam Speaker, is that the re-engagement policy also does exist. So areas where we have lack of skills, lack of expertise, the technical know-how, because we don't have young people coming up with that skill sets, those people over the age of 55 are re-engaged also. So there is that scope for that. So it's not like government is left with a big hole in terms of a lack of technical skill set that are suddenly missing. Now these include, Madam Speaker, doctors, nurses, engineers, land surveyors, hydrologists, the good land surveyors, researchers, all of those people, Madam Speaker, they are the ones, Madam Speaker, who are re-engaged. Now, the Honourable Leader of Opposition spoke about how our teachers are going to the Pacific Islands. Why they went to the Pacific Islands, Madam Speaker? Because it was under the Bainimarama government that established the Fiji Volunteer Service Scheme. It was the Bainimarama government that created that. The examples that the Honourable Leader cited of those people in Nauru are paid by the Australian government. I'm talking about the Fijian volunteers under the volunteer scheme established under the Bainimarama government who are now working as teachers in various other Pacific Island countries. Now the logic being, Madam Speaker, is, and the reality is, and perhaps Sodelpa should have noted this, because if you look at, Madam Speaker, the bulk of the voters who were below the age of, I understand, 33 or so, there were about 200,000 of them in the last elections, out of 594,000 voters. That's what they did not understand. The reality is, Madam Speaker, is that Fiji's population distribution is more at the bottom end of the age distribution. In other countries cited in Europe, the population is the top end. They are not reproducing as much as we are. Their population is getting older. They probably one child per family, if that. In Fiji, we have larger population base, bigger families, more mouths to feed, more people who need jobs. The young people in Fiji need jobs, and we are creating those jobs. The economy is growing in excess of 4%, unprecedented for the past 3-4 years. I know they don't like to hear that, but that is the reality. The reserves have increased. Foreign investment is coming in. Our credit rating has gone up. So more opportunities are being created. And people in many countries, Madam Speaker, even in countries like Singapore and other places, it is not unusual for many civil servants who have gained that experience to be able to enter into the private sector with that experience. And in fact, they are highly sought after, many of those people. So this, Madam Speaker, this motion here essentially has got no basis. I heard the learned leader of opposition talk about what happened in the past. We need to be future focused. We need to be future focused. The retirement policy cannot change the past. The retirement policy needs to be future focused. What are we going to do for the future? And the reality is, Madam Speaker, that the current policy of the retirement age is something that is relevant, applicable to Fiji, and therefore this motion should not be supported. Thank you.
Thank you. There being no... I'm mindful of the time, and usually we have one from the government, one from the opposition. It seems that we are now, the Honourable Attorney General has rounded off the government presentation on this one. So I will now give the Honourable Leader of Opposition, mindful of the time as well, to give her right of reply.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I thank the honourable members who have contributed to this debate on this motion. And I thank those who have spoken with wisdom and logic to this debate. I note that the Honourable Attorney General is has often said that we should not look at the past, but the past determines our future, Madam Speaker. And I feel sorry for children who do not know, or if they are taken up by what Honourable Attorney General has often said, is that we don't look at the past, we don't look at history. But history has made us what we are in this country, Madam Speaker. And we look forward to the future, because in the future, they will be looking at this time too, where he will be part of history. And we hope that history will judge him wisely for that, Madam Speaker, in terms of these reforms and the changes that he's bringing about to the various policies and decrees that we have now in this country, and this particular one that we have before us. The brain drain, Madam Speaker, has been alluded to by various speakers. Those who are living to go overseas on the volunteer scheme, Honourable Speaker, they would not go overseas if they could opt to live in their own country. They leave their families behind, There's a different standard of living in some of those countries. So if we were to ask, if we were to carry out a survey, I'm sure many of them would prefer to live in their own country and to be employed here. Those others who have spoken on the superannuation, we will look at that in a few years' time to see how it impacts on the workers who are contributing to that, and in terms of what they will get out of the funds that are now in place through the reforms. Madam Speaker, that is all I have to say this afternoon in terms of the contributions that have been made to this debate, and I commend the motion to the House.
Thank you. The Parliament will now vote on this motion. Does any member oppose the Honourable Rodimo Muskepa's motion? We have noes and yeses, so we will put the motion to the vote. It is now open to the vote. Close the vote. Secretary General.
Result of the vote as follows: 16 ayes, 24 noes, 1 abstention, 9 have not voted.
Thank you. There being 16 ayes and 24 noes, the motion is defeated. Honourable members, the one motion not disposed of today will remain in the order book of upcoming business. The Business Committee may decide to list them on the order paper on a future sitting Friday. Secretary General.
Adjournment.
I'll call the Leader of the Government in Parliament to move the adjournment of the House.